So by now you should have watched the other videos on this playlist and know all the fundamentals of genetics. As a review, first, you know that humans have 2 copies of every gene inside their cells. One was inherited from the mother, and one was inherited from the father. Second, some of these genes are dominant to others. Dominant genes will mask or cover up recessive genes, so only the dominant gene will be observed. Recessive genes are only expressed when the dominant gene is not present. Third, phenotype is the word for the outward appearance of a gene of an individual. Genotype is the word for the pair of genes an individual has. Genotypes may be homozygous dominant, heterozygous, or homozygous recessive. So that brings us to the topic of our video, Punnet Squares. A Punnett Square is a diagram that is used to predict the genetic outcome of a particular genetic cross. In its most basic form, a Punnett Square is just a grid of 4 boxes. If the genotypes of 2 parents are known, Punnett Squares can be used to predict the percent chance their baby will have a certain trait. Let's analyze this Punnett Square piece by piece so you know how to make them in the future. The first thing to do in solving a Punnett Square is to write the genotypes of the parents on the outside of the boxes. When writing the parent genotypes down, what you want to do is align each letter so there is 1 letter over each box. Notice here how I have each letter aligned over each one of the boxes. This will make things neater and easier later on. Remember that the capital letter representing the dominant allele is usually written first. In this case, we are crossing a yellow pea plant with a green pea plant. Yellow is the dominant trait. We seem to have a mother who is heterozygous and a father who is homozygous recessive. It doesn't really matter which parent is written where. Now, to solve a Punnett Square, you simply have to drag each allele into the appropriate box. Letters get dragged across the whole row they are next to, or the column that they are above. Let's start with the recessive allele in the top left. Drag it down to both the boxes below it. The other recessive allele at the top also gets dragged down to both of the boxes below it. Next, we have the dominant allele on the left-hand side of the box. You're going to want to drag this across to the boxes to the right of it, capital Y and capital Y. Lastly, we just have the recessive allele on the left-hand side. We're going to take that recessive allele and drag it to the 2 boxes to the right of it. Wow, we solved the Punnett Square. It's that easy. Now we just have to analyze it. Each box represents a 25% chance that a baby will be born with that genotype. Before we look at each box, let's clean up the way they look. Alright, so now that they look good, let's analyze it. In the top left box, we have a heterozygous genotype, giving us, to start out, a 25% chance the offspring will be heterozygous. In the second box, there's another heterozygous genotype, so another 25% chance the offspring will be heterozygous. In the bottom left box, we have homozygous recessive, giving us a 25% chance it'll be homozygous recessive. And in the last box, we also have homozygous recessive, giving us another 25% chance for homozygous recessive. So what this means is that there will be a total of a 50% chance the offspring will be heterozygous. Because if you take 25% chance from one box and 25% chance from another box, 50% chance total. And the same can be done with the 2 boxes on the bottom. We have a 25% chance in the bottom left that it'll be homozygous recessive, and another 25% chance in the bottom right that it'll be homozygous recessive. So that gives us a total of a 50% chance that it'll be homozygous recessive. That tells us the percent chance that this offspring's genotypes. For the phenotypes, it means we have a 1/2 or 50% chance that the offspring will be yellow, and there's a 1/2 or 50% chance the offspring will be green. So that's it. We've solved and analyzed a Punnett Square and determined the probability of the genotypes and phenotypes. One last thing to consider is that the results of a Punnett Square just represent the probable chance of the genotypes. Each seed produced by these plants individually has a 50% chance to be green. It does not mean that if 2 seeds are produced and the first is yellow, then the next will definitely be green. It's kind of like flipping a coin. If you flip a coin 10 times, you might get heads 7 times in a row before even getting tails. Every flip of the coin has the same 50% chance of being either heads or tails. I'll do one more example of a Punnett Square as practice. Alright, so most of the problems that we'll do in class that involve Punnett squares will be given in the form of word problems. You'll get some kind of information about the trait being crossed, about the parents, and then you'll have to figure out the percent chance of genetic cross. Reading this problem, it says that dogs who are heterozygous for ear shape will have floppy ears, not pointy ones. This tells me that floppy is the dominant trait, and let's use capital E for ears. And pointy ears are recessive, so we'll use lowercase e as recessive. Now, it says that two dogs with floppy ears who are heterozygous are bred together. Alright, so as always, you want to start out by writing down the parent genotypes at the top and side of the box. So we have two heterozygous parents that are bred together. Now, to solve it, you want to take the first E from the top row and bring it down one box, and take the E from the left row and bring it over one box. Now take that top E again, bring it down all the way to the bottom, and take the lowercase e here over and bring it over. Now we go back to the top, look at the top E, bring it down one box, and find the capital E on the left side and bring it over two boxes. And finally, bring the lowercase e all the way down to the bottom, and the other lowercase e all the way over to the right. That's it, so we've solved the Punnett square. Now let's analyze it. So we have homozygous dominant genotype, giving us a 25% chance there, two heterozygous genotypes for 50% chance, and one homozygous recessive for 25% chance. So we have a 25% chance total that the offspring will be homozygous dominant, because there was just the one box with a homozygous dominant genotype. We have two boxes that are heterozygous, giving us a total of 50% chance the offspring will be heterozygous for this trait. And finally, if you look at the bottom right hand side, you'll see there's a 25% chance that this offspring will be homozygous recessive, since there's only one box that has the homozygous recessive genotype. And remember, this is just a probability. So the question asks us, what is the percent chance the puppy will have pointy ears? So it's looking for a phenotype. And we know that pointy ears is homozygous recessive. So we have a 25% chance that this offspring will have pointy ears. And that answers our question. And just out of curiosity, we can also say that there is a 75% chance that the offspring will have floppy ears. So solving a Punnett square and analyzing it is as easy as that. We just have to remember that each box represents a 25% chance. You can solve every Punnett square in this same way.